Story 1. He who is saving his country has committed no crime. Musk is not and has never been in charge of Dogecoin. Only the president and attorney general can interpret the law. Something really strange is about to happen. Story 2. Executive orders aren't the law, but he's going to pretend like they are. This is him wiping his ass with the Constitution. It's an authoritative power grab. Pure facade. Story 3. How do I feel? I feel angry, and scared, and nauseous, and hot and cold and numb, and it's all at once. I am afraid for my rights, the rights of my now 11-year-old daughter as she grows up. I'm worried about your rights, our right to a free press and unbiased media, our right to free speech. I'm shaken. Edited. I said some not nice things about Trump voters. I removed it. I shouldn't have resorted to name-calling. I'm just extremely scared and disappointed in half the country. Story 4. I feel glad I didn't vote for him. Kamala would have been a generic Democratic presidency, which isn't what I want either, but it's better than this. Trump and Elon should be in jail for what they're doing. Story 5. Trump is still upset about his United States Football League failures and the shame it brought him. The National Football League laughed him out of contention when he attempted to purchase the Buffalo Bills. He is all hat, no cattle. Sadly and consequently, many of his supporters bought into his falsehoods. He is a failed person and a failed businessman. As a self-described rational person and currently an embarrassed American, I apologize to the rest of the sane world. Most of the country does not want this. Felonious Trump and Musk rigged our voting systems. Notice how he isn't constantly complaining about the election being rigged now? Yes, it's because they manipulated it. I know a number of his supporters, sadly, and very soon a lot of this will affect their lives. I'm already hearing some complaints about gas, food, and the cost of living that Trump promised to solve, as if he ever cared about the working class. Story 6. Executive orders are not laws, and a president does not have the power to create laws. So, he can take that piece of paper and disregard it because that's about all it's worth. Story 7. There's more of us than there are of them, and the right to bear arms is there to deal with tyrannical governments. It's time for people to get off the couch, turn off TikTok, and do the one thing the Constitution actually intended guns be used for. Story 8. I'm terrified. Not just because of this, but this as well. It's moving fast. Our bank details have been given to Elon Musk, and citizens are being picked up off the street. Our nuclear safety is severely compromised, not to mention our place in escalating world conflicts. Story 9. I think that if the Republicans do not impeach and remove him from office in the next month or so, after that it will be too late. He was not kidding when he said that if he won this year, his supporters would never have to vote again. Story 10. I'm losing my mind with fear. Every day gets worse, and all I see is a dictator and oligarchs stealing our democracy. I cannot believe this is happening, and no one can seem to stop him. He has eliminated all the checks and balances, taken our freedom, money, and ethical way of life. I am terrified. Story 11. We need to get Trump and all his people out of government as fast as possible because they are trying to institute an authoritarian regime that will only benefit them and the billionaire class. Story 12. I'm terrified. I've been terrified. I'll continue to be terrified. I'm confused as to how my country failed so badly and that we have at minimum 4 years of this insanity. Story 13. Explain like I'm 5. Because I am not American. Does the United States Constitution actually allow the president to executive order his way into being above the law? Because that seems like a glaring hole that someone would have fixed with an amendment or something if it wasn't part of the original. Story 14. Which one is this? I don't want to read them all, but based on this list, I don't see one matching that description. Story 15. I think people are beginning to realize what a mess everything is. This is what happens when corporations are considered people and money is considered free speech. I'm surprised that they even bother with the puppet show anymore. You won, we get it. Story 16. Honestly, it feels like another power grab. It's a bit unsettling to think that only the president and attorney general can decide what the law is. That's a lot of authority in just 2 hands, and it raises concerns about checks and balances. Story 17. Hoping for a heart attack because we know the Democrats aren't going to stop him at this point. Decades of daily McDonald's is the only thing that can save democracy at this point. Story 18. President Trump on Tuesday signed an executive order declaring that only the Attorney General or the President, instead of federal regulators or bureaucrats, can speak for the United States when interpreting the meaning of laws carried out by the executive branch. Story 19. Why can't I find anything about this? What is the title of the order? The only source is the Washington Times, and they don't even name the order. Edit. Found it. It's actually worse. Restoring democracy and accountability in government. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order ensuring that all federal agencies are accountable to the American people, as required by the Constitution. Under this executive order, the order notes that Article 2 of the United States Constitution vests all executive power in the President, meaning that all executive branch officials and employees are subject to his supervision. Therefore, because all executive power is vested in the President, all agencies must 1. Submit draft regulations for White House review, with no carve-out for so-called independent agencies, except for the monetary policy functions of the Federal Reserve, and 2. Consult with the White House on their priorities and strategic plans, and the White House will set their performance standards. The Office of Management and Budget will adjust so-called independent agencies' apportionments to ensure tax dollars are spent wisely. The President and the Attorney General, subject to the President's supervision and control, will interpret the law for the executive branch. Instead of having separate agencies adopt conflicting interpretations. Reigning in independent agencies. So-called independent agencies like the Federal Trade Commission, Federal Communications Commission, and Securities and Exchange Commission have exercised enormous power over the American people without presidential oversight. These agencies issue rules and regulations that cost billions of dollars and implicate some of the most controversial policy matters. And they do so without the review of the democratically elected president. They also spend American tax dollars and set priorities without consulting the president while setting their own performance standards. Now they will no longer impose rules on the American people without oversight or accountability, ensuring a government that answers to the people. This order fulfills President Trump's promise to restore constitutional governance and accountability to the entire executive branch. Executive power without responsibility has no place in our republic. The United States was founded on the principle that the government should be accountable to the people. That is why the founders created a single president who is alone vested with the executive power and responsibility to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Voters and the president can now hold all federal agencies, not just cabinet departments, responsible for their decisions as the Constitution demands. Story 20. It takes 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to change the Constitution. Now, considering that at least half are Republicans who will kiss the ring, it can be slightly worrisome, but I do not think they will be able to get past enough Democrats to vote their way. Trump has been called a lazy president, and I agree. He does not go through the House to create new laws. He just writes executive orders and rules that way because he does not know how to be a president. He denigrates other presidents for writing executive orders, yet he writes the most of them. Story 21. Executive orders are not the law. Do not obey in advance. Now, let's just hope the judiciary remembers that. My hope is getting pretty dry, though. Story 22. It is unconstitutional, but so is almost every other executive order he has signed. If he can ignore the Constitution, then I choose to ignore that he speaks for me. He can go himself. Story 23. I'm not a Make America Great Again person, but that's not what this executive order says. Read it for yourself. He's neutering the Federal Communications Commission, Securities and Exchange Commission, and Federal Trade Commission, which fall under the executive branch but have historically been treated as if they're independent entities. It says the executive branch is responsible for interpreting laws passed and how to implement them, which has always been true ultimately. Previous administrations chose not to consolidate power at the top. This one wants absolute power. There's plenty of wrongdoing going on without the misinformation. Story 24. I feel the same way that I felt before the election. The person is setting up for an autocrat and nobody wanted to listen. Is it really such a stretch for him to try to abolish term limits? Story 25. Which executive order would that be? The only one I'm seeing for February 18th, 2025, says absolutely nothing even close to what you're claiming. Edit. The most recent one seems to be from February 12th, but still doesn't say anything close to the claim made. Story 26. He also rescinded a lot, including this one, Executive Order 14009 of January 28, 2021, titled Strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Anyway, may we all die of tuberculosis or something. I don't know, but he really is trying to rule via executive order, and it just doesn't work like that, or it shouldn't anyway. Story 27. Dude is a joke. Unfortunately, his allies in Congress and the Supreme Court are in on the joke with him, and they're just going to let him become a dictator. I don't see this ending anywhere other than war. Story 28. Every day, I think about what's the next worst thing they'll do after yesterday's worst thing. At this rate, I'm pretty sure he'll mishandle the nuclear football and wipe Los Angeles from the map out of spite, and his followers will cheer. Story 29. The United States government has 3 branches to make sure no one has too much power. 1. Legislative, Congress, Senate, and House of Representatives. Asterisk makes the laws. Asterisk think of them as the rule writers. Executive, president, and government agencies. Asterisk enforces the laws. Asterisk the president is like the team captain making sure things get done. Judicial, Supreme Court, and other courts. Asterisk interprets the laws. Asterisk judges make sure rules are fair and followed correctly. Each branch checks and balances the others so no one can take full control. That is how democracy stays fair. Story 30. So if there is a dispute over election rules, the president or attorney general could override state officials and courts, decide which ballots count, or even reject election results. Story 31. It is an executive order. The judicial branch has the power to strike it down, and they have a strong incentive to do so. It will not be news in a week. Story 32. I honestly can't stand what's happening in the United States right now with the presidency. I feel that everything is entirely out of my control at this point. Story 33. Conservatives are really quiet, as usual. Their support for the Constitution has always been performative chest puffing, charming everyone else with delusional tales of using their guns to take down a government that is now, for all intents and purposes, quickly becoming the one they all used to fantasize toppling. Story 34. It is grade school social studies, the 3 branches of federal government and their checks and balances. You are not slick, Trump, but God, are your constituents stupid. Story 35. People should really read a little before getting their Trump engine wound up. This is a limitation on federal agencies deciding what the law is without legislative or judicial oversight. It doesn't in any way refer to limiting the courts. Even a broken clock is right twice a day, and today is Trump's day between this order and another seeking to expand universal access to in vitro fertilization treatment. Story 36. He's going to keep doing whatever he can get away with. Where is Congress? Are all the Republican Congress members Russian assets as well? How is Mitch McConnell now the only person standing up to this nonsense? Story 37. I don't understand how any of these executive orders are even remotely legitimate. I know many are being challenged in court. Can this one be? It's very much a toddler mentality, like if I see it, I take it. Makes sense to me. Like, what are we even doing? Story 38. The United States will not come back from this. It's going to be a slow breakup, much like the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics went through. Blue states are getting fed up paying for red state welfare. Story 39. It's disgusting, and it's even more disgusting how many people support it, yet would be kicking and screaming if Barack Obama or Joe Biden did it. History will not be kind to these people. Story 40. Yeah, it means nothing. A very large amount of very dumb people will take it at face value, but that is only because they did not pay attention in school while we were studying government for 12 years. Story 41. This is the first time I am reading about this, so I will have to wait until I hear more to fully process and not just react to news from the first random source.